Hello, I'm Peter. I'm so glad you could join me for tonight's journey. Where are you listening from tonight? The Midwest, the South, or perhaps some quiet corner of the countryside? Wherever you may be, let's settle in and listen to this story together. Now take a deep breath and pull your blanket tighter. Imagine the central heating is gone, the walls are thinning, the silence is deepening, and the thermometer is dropping fast. Tonight, we're asking a quiet question. How did they do it? How did families like the Bennetts turn a wooden cabin into one of the only true shelters capable of withstanding the night when failure meant death before dawn? Hey, one small thing before we start. If you appreciate these stories of forgotten resilience, please follow the show or leave a comment with the exact temperature outside your door right now. Let's see who's weathering the snowstorms with us. All right, let's go. It was the winter that refused to end. January 1883, Montana Territory, the kind of cold that stops being a sensation and becomes a presence, a thing that lives in the air, in the walls, in the very silence between heartbeats. You are 12 years old. Your name is Ethan Bennett, and tonight, as the wind begins, its low howl and the threat of blizzards hangs heavy over the frozen prairie, you are learning what it truly means to survive. The thermometer outside your family's cabin reads 20 below zero, but that's a lie. Your father Silas checked it an hour ago and shook his head slowly. Mercury's frozen solid. He said, his breath a ghost in the lamplight. That means we're past 40 below, maybe more, 40 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. At that temperature, exposed skin freezes in under 5 minutes. Breath crystallizes mid-air and falls like tiny needles of ice. Steel becomes brittle, snaps like kindling. And the cold doesn't just surround you, it searches for you. You've lived on this frontier for 3 years now, since you were 9. 3 winters. But this one is different. Everyone says so. At the winter gathering last month, before the real cold set in old Mr. Hendricks, a man who'd survived the hard winter of 1880 pulled your father aside. You watched them through the smoky haze of the gathering, saw Mr. Hendricks grip your father's shoulder with a hand gnarled like an old root. Later, riding home in the wagon, your mother Ilara asked what the old man had said. Your father was quiet for a long time, guiding the horses through the blue twilight. Finally, he said, "This one's going to test us," said the signs are all there. The woolly caterpillars with extra thick coats. The way the deer came down from the high country a month early. The geese flying south in October instead of November. He paused. Said to make sure we had double the wood we thought we'd need. Said to check on the O'Connor brothers every few days once the deep cold sets in. The O'Connor brothers. Your mother's voice carried a note of concern. Liam and Sean O'Connor, Irish immigrants, former railroad workers. They'd helped lay track for the Northern Pacific line that finally reached Montana Territory just 2 years before. Strong as oxen, but new to the frontier. They'd built their cabin just a half-mile north, visible from your upper window on clear days. They're young and strong, your father said. But they don't know what they don't know. That's when the frontier takes people. Now sitting in your family's cabin as darkness falls and the temperature plummets, you understand what he meant. The cold outside isn't just uncomfortable, it's lethal. And between you and that cold is only this log structure, this carefully managed fire, this accumulated knowledge that your family carries like precious cargo. The problem isn't simply survival. The problem is mastering the necessary winter survival skills and maintaining the thousands of tiny rituals, the constant vigilance, the unrelenting work that survival demands. For months. Not days, not weeks, months. The problem is that one mistake, one moment of carelessness, one gap in the wood supply, one spark that escapes the firebox, one window left insufficiently sealed can end everything before morning. And the other problem, the one nobody talks about openly, but everyone knows the cold that seeps into your mind. The way the darkness and isolation and unending winter can make a person give up even when the fire is still burning and food is still on the shelf. The way winter kills from the inside. Your father calls it the cabin sickness. Your mother calls it losing the thread. But you've heard the adults at those community gatherings speak of it in hushed tones, always with examples, always with names. Remember the Johansson brothers. That's what you're fighting. Not just the cold outside, but the cold that wants to take root inside your chest, in the place where hope lives. Your cabin is 16 feet by 20 feet. 320 square feet for 6 human beings to live. Sleep, cook, work, and maintain sanity for the next 4 months. But it's not just a cabin. It's a fortress, a lifeboat. It is one of the most robust shelters engineered for this unforgiving climate, designed by your father in August, when the idea of 50 below seemed like a story from another world. Let's walk through it together. Every detail matters. The walls. The logs are ponderosa pine 14 inches thick at their widest point. Your father chose each one, personally rejecting any with large knots or rot. They stack horizontally, their ends notched in dovetail joints that lock together like interwoven fingers. Between each log packed into the horizontal gap is chinking, a mixture of moss clay and dried grass that your mother and sister Clara spent weeks gathering and mixing. This creates a seal, almost airtight, almost. Because here's what you learned last winter. Cold finds every weakness, every microscopic gap, and it pours through like water through a crack. So in October, your entire family spent a week banking the cabin. You hauled wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow of dirt and packed it against the exterior walls, creating an earth berm that rises 3 feet high all around the structure. Then you covered that dirt with a thick layer of pine needles and branches. This creates dead airspace, an insulation layer that slows heat loss through the walls. Inside the walls are lined with newspaper. Every page of every newspaper that's come through the territory for the past year has been saved, and now they're pasted to the logs with flour paste mixture. 3 layers deep. Your sister Clara reads them sometimes, these fragments of news from a warmer world. Mr. Edison's electric station opens in New York. One headline from last September announces, Northern Pacific tracks reach the Yellowstone. Another declares, the very line that brought the O'Connor brothers west, seeking new lives after the rails were laid. Words from a world where people complain about winter if it snows 6 inches. Above the newspaper layer, your mother has hung quilts. Not decorative quilts. These are working quilts stitched from every scrap of fabric that's entered this house. Old dresses, worn-out shirts, the canvas from a torn tent. They hang on pegs, creating another dead airspace between the newspaper and the living area. So the actual wall is this 14-inch log moss, chinking 3 feet of banked earth, and branches, newspaper layer, quilt layer. Heat doesn't pass through easily, but it still passes through. You run your fingers along the inside wall, sometimes feeling the layers of protection. The quilts are soft under your touch, but beneath them, you can sense the rigidity of the logs, the ancient strength of trees that once stood in mountain forests, drinking snowmelt and sunshine. Your father told you these trees were already old when he was born, some of them nearly 80 years standing before the saw brought them down. There's a strange intimacy in living inside dead trees. You're surrounded by wood that once lived, that once breathed through its bark, that once reached toward the sky. Now it encircles you, holds you, keeps you alive with its stillness. The wood remembers summer, you think, somewhere in its cells. In the dark rings that mark each year of growth, it remembers warmth. On the coldest nights, you press your palm flat against the newspaper layer and close your eyes. You can feel the cold trying to seep through, a patient, relentless pressure. It's like the cabin walls are a dam, and winter is an ocean pressing against it, searching for cracks, for weaknesses, for any way to flood in and drown you all. But the wall holds. Night after night, it holds. The roof. Above you, the ceiling is lower than you remember from summer. That's because in November, your father and the older boys from the neighboring homesteads helped each other install winter ceilings in all the cabins. They stretched canvas across the rafters about 7 feet up, creating a false ceiling that traps the warm air below and prevents it from rising into the peaked roof space where it would be wasted. Above that canvas in the roof space, your father packed every inch with dried prairie grass. Not loose, that would be a fire hazard if the chimney ever sparked, but bundled tightly into burlap sacks. Hundreds of pounds of grass that now presses down on that canvas, creating an insulation layer. You can hear it sometimes when the wind picks up during the heavy snowstorms that batter the plains. A soft rustling, the grass settling, shifting under its own weight, like the cabin is breathing. The floor. Beneath your feet, the floor is double-layered. The first floor is rough-cut planks laid directly on the leveled ground. Then, covering that, your father built a second floor of tighter-fitted boards with a 6-inch gap between. That gap is filled with sand hauled from the creek bed in September. Why sand? Because it's thermal mass. Once it's warmed by the cabin heat, it holds that warmth and radiates it back slowly. But more importantly, it stops cold air from seeping up from the frozen earth below. Even so, you wear 2 pairs of wool socks at all times indoors. The floor is never truly warm. Your toes learn to operate in a state of perpetual coolness, not quite cold enough to hurt, but never comfortable. Before we look at the windows, we must acknowledge the other heartbeat of this homestead, the barn. It sits 30 yards from the cabin, connected by a guide rope strung between posts, a lifeline, so you don't lose your way in a whiteout. In this weather, the barn is not just a storage space, it is a secondary generator of heat. Inside, the air is thick and smells of sweet hay and manure. It is warmer here than outside, thanks to the massive bodies of the 2 draft horses, Bess and Buster, and the family milk cow Daisy. Your father banked the barn walls just like the cabin, but the real furnace here is biology. A 1,000-pound animal generates an immense amount of BTUs just by existing. Daisy wears a blanket made from old grain sacks. The chickens have been moved into a small coop built inside the barn for their protection. Your daily chore, Ethan, is to break the ice in their water trough and ensure they are fed. You often linger here longer than necessary, pressing your forehead against Bess's warm flank, listening to the steady rhythmic chewing of the animals. They are calm. They do not know about thermometers or frostbite. Their calmness settles your own fear. In the ecosystem of the frontier, their survival is linked to yours. If they freeze, you starve. If you fail to feed them, they die. It is a contract of mutual care, written in hay and warm breath. Sometimes, when the cabin feels too small, too suffocating, you volunteer for barn duty, even when it's not your turn. Your father understands. He never questions it. The journey from cabin to barn is only 30 yards, but in blizzards, it's a voyage across an alien landscape. You grip the guide rope with both mittened hands and move slowly, one careful step at a time. The wind tries to shove you sideways. Snow stings your face through the scarf. The world disappears into white static. But then you're through the barn door, and it's like entering another country. The animals turn their large heads toward you. Bess, the older mare, nickels softly, a sound of recognition, of welcome. The air here is thick and alive with their breathing. You can see it, clouds of vapor rising from their nostrils, dissipating in the rafters. The smell is strong, manure and hay, and the earthy musk of large mammals. But it's not unpleasant. It's the smell of life persisting. You move to Daisy first. The cow is lying down, her massive body radiating heat like a stove. You kneel beside her and rest your forehead against her flank. Through the grain sack blanket, you can feel her warmth. Her breathing is slow, deep, rhythmic. Her heart beats steady. Baboom, baboom, baboom. For a few minutes, you synchronize your breathing with hers. In, out, in, out. The panic that was building in your chest, the cabin fever, the creeping sense of being buried alive, begins to ease. "Thank you," you whisper to her. She chews her cud, philosophical, unconcerned. To her, this is just winter. Nothing more, nothing less. You break the ice in the water trough with a metal rod, creating a jagged hole in the thick surface. The ice is 4 inches deep. Underneath, the water is liquid but painfully cold. The chickens flutter and cluck in their protected coop, a small riot of life in the barn's corner. Before you leave, you stand in the center of the barn and just listen. The sounds of animal life surround you. Chewing, breathing, the rustle of straw, the soft cluck of settling hens. These sounds are a counterweight to the silence of the prairie, to the dead quiet of snow-covered land stretching to the horizon. You are not alone. Even here at the edge of civilization, life surrounds you, persists, endures. You carry that knowledge back to the cabin like a warm stone in your pocket. The windows. There are 2 windows each, no more than 12 inches square. Glass was expensive. Real glass brought all the way from the railroad depot. Your family has 4 precious panes, 2 per window. But in winter, glass is a liability. It's a cold surface that creates condensation, which freezes, which cracks the seal. So in November, your father built wooden shutters that fit inside the window frames, sealing them completely. These shutters are made from double-thickness boards, with oiled paper sandwiched between them. Now, in deep winter, those shutters stay closed, won't open until March. The only light in this cabin comes from the fire and from tallow candles that your mother rations like gold. You live in permanent twilight. Morning looks like evening. Noon looks like midnight. Your body loses track of time. You sleep when you're exhausted. You wake when someone shakes your shoulder. The sun exists somewhere out there, but you're no longer sure you believe in it. The door. The door is the weakest point. Your father knows this. Everyone knows this. So the door is actually 3 doors. The outer door is thick planks reinforced with iron straps, scavenged from a broken wagon wheel. It opens outward, crucial detail. If snow drifts against it, you can still force it open. Then there's a 4-foot entryway, a tiny airlock space where boots, coats, and tools are kept. This space is always cold, always below freezing, but it's a buffer zone that prevents outside air from rushing directly into the living space. Then comes the inner door, which opens inward. This door has a leather curtain behind it, a full elk hide that your father shot last fall, tanned by your mother, and now hung from pegs to create one more barrier against drafts. You pass through all 3 layers every time you exit to the woodpile or the outhouse. And every time you feel the cold chase you back inside, trying to pour through that open passage before you can seal it shut again. The stove. At the heart of everything is the iron stove. It's a modified railroad cook stove traded for at the Frontier General Store. It has a firebox that can burn logs up to 18 inches long, a flat cooking surface on top, and a chimney pipe that rises through the roof. But here's the artistry that chimney pipe doesn't go straight through. Your father bent it into a long S-curve before it exits, so the hot smoke has to travel through extra metal pipe, radiating heat into the cabin, instead of sending it all straight up and out into the Montana sky. Some people think that's dangerous. More bends mean more places for creosote to build up more fire risk. But your father cleans that pipe religiously. Every 2 weeks, he disassembles parts of it and scrapes it clean, because he knows the alternative is freezing to death while sitting on an abundance of fuel. The stove is never allowed to go cold. Never. Not for the entire winter. This means someone must wake every 3 to 4 hours every night to add wood. Your family takes shifts. Your father takes the deep night watch midnight to 4 a.m. Your mother takes the pre-dawn shift. Your older sister, Clara, takes the evening watch. And you, Ethan, you're now old enough to take the early evening shift, the 7 to 10 p.m. watch, when the fire needs steady feeding as the family prepares for sleep. It's not just about adding logs. It's about reading the fire, understanding draft and airflow, knowing when to open the damper to increase heat for cooking and when to close it down to make the wood last longer overnight. Your father has been teaching you this art since October. A fire, he says, is not a thing you build and forget. It's a living relationship. You listen to it, you respect it, and it keeps you alive. The wood. Outside, protected under a slanted roof extension, is your family's true wealth. Wood. Cords upon cords of it. Your father, your older brothers from the community work parties, and you spent the entire summer cutting, splitting, and stacking. You close your eyes, and you can still remember the rhythm of that work. The sing-song metallic hiss of the 2-man crosscut, saw moving back and forth through a massive oak trunk. Don't force it, your father would say, his voice calm amidst the sawdust. Let the weight of the saw do the work. You remember the smell of fresh sap, sharp and green, so different from the dry, smoky smell of winter. That summer labor is now stored heat, and it's not just random logs. It is a curated library of energy. There is pine, full of resin, which burns hot and fast for morning wake-ups. There is oak, dense and heavy, providing the steady, thrumming heat for the day. And buried deepest in the stack is the hickory, the gold standard. Hickory is for the coldest nights. It burns slow, stubborn, and leaves a bed of coals that glows like dragon eyes until dawn. Your father estimates you have enough for 4 months at the current burn rate. But enough is a terrifying concept. Because if the winter runs long, if spring doesn't come until late April instead of early April, you'll be making hard choices. Burning furniture, burning floorboards, and if it goes beyond that, you try not to think about it. Every log that goes into that stove is measured against the calendar. Every log is a piece of time, a number of hours of warmth that will never come again. You've learned not to waste heat on sentiment. If someone leaves the door open for 10 extra seconds, your father doesn't yell. He just looks at them. And that look contains calculations. That look says, "You just burned 6 inches of our oak stack." The living space. In summer, this cabin felt spacious. Now, with all 6 of you living in 320 square feet, with the walls insulated inward and the ceiling dropped down, it feels like living inside a ship's cabin or a cave. There's your parents' bed in one corner, a blanket curtain that can be pulled for privacy. There's the children's sleeping area. You and your younger siblings share pallets on the floor layered with straw-ticking wool blankets and quilts. Clara, at 16, has a narrow bunk built against the wall. There's the table hand-built by your father, where all meals are eaten and all work is done. There's a shelf for the few precious books, a Bible, a farmer's almanac, Clara's schoolbook from when there was still a school within traveling distance. In this crowded space, another silent battle is fought, the battle for hygiene. In the modern world, a hot shower is a thoughtless daily occurrence. Here, it is a logistical mountain. You don't bathe every day. You don't even bathe every week. But on Saturday nights, the Saturday wash happens. It requires melting buckets of snow on the stove, a process that consumes hours of fuel. The galvanized tub is brought into the center of the room close to the heat. There is a hierarchy. Your mother bathes the youngest children first, while the water is cleanest and hottest. Then the older children, then herself, then your father. By the end, the water is lukewarm and grey, but it is still precious. It won't be tossed out. It will be used to wash the floor or soak the heaviest work clothes. This ritual is stripped of all privacy, but it is handled with a profound, silent dignity. Everyone turns their backs. Everyone creates a wall of privacy with their attention, if not their eyes. It teaches you that modesty is not about walls. It is about respect. There are pegs on every wall for hanging clothes, because nothing can touch the floor where it might get damp. There's a corner for the slop bucket, which must be emptied daily no matter the weather. There's a drying rack near the stove for any clothes that get damp from sweat or dishwater. And there's almost no privacy, almost no silence, almost no escape from the constant presence of your family members. This is what people don't understand about winter survival on the frontier. It's not the cold that breaks most people. It's this: the crushing proximity, the inability to ever be alone, the way someone's chewing sounds start to feel like violence after the 50th day, the way your sister's habit of humming while she sews becomes the most annoying sound in the known universe, the cabin fever, the slow madness of confinement, unless you have the wisdom to fight it, unless you have rituals. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. Outside, night fell 3 hours ago. Up here, at this latitude, in the dead of winter, you get maybe 7 hours of weak daylight. The rest is darkness. Your mother Elara begins the evening ritual. "Clara, banking time," she says softly. Not a command, just a statement of fact, part of the routine that keeps you all sane. Clara rises from her sewing and moves to the stove. She opens the door and uses the iron poker to collapse the burning logs into a bed of coals. Then she adds 3 thick pieces of oak, laid parallel with precise air gaps between them, not thrown in randomly. Everything is intentional. The logs are positioned so they'll burn slowly, evenly for the next 4 hours until your father's midnight check. While Clara manages the fire, your mother begins the process of closing the cabin down for night. She checks the leather curtain behind the inner door, making sure it's hanging properly. She checks the windows, running her hand along the edges of the shutters to feel for any draft. She finds a slight coolness near the bottom left corner of the north window. She takes a rag, presses it into the gap. Problem solved. You watch her do this every night and you're learning. This is how you survive. Constant vigilance. Constant small adjustments. Then comes the part of the evening you love most. Your mother opens the stove door and uses tongs to retrieve 4 stones that have been sitting on the lip of the firebox all evening. These are smooth, round river rocks, harvested from the creek bed specifically for their density. They are hot, too hot to touch. Working quickly, she wraps each stone in layers of thick wool flannel. She ties the bundles with twine. 1 for the boys, 1 for the girls, she says. You take your designated stone. It is a heavy, radiant lump of warmth. You slide it to the bottom of your sleeping pallet, down where your feet will be. The heat radiates through the wool, turning the freezing bedding into a pocket of comfort. It is a primitive hot water bottle, a piece of the fire that you can take with you into the dark. As the fire is banked, the light in the cabin dims. Candles are too expensive to burn all evening, so your mother lights the slush lamp. It is a simple, crude invention, a saucer filled with leftover bacon grease or bear fat with a twisted rag serving as a wick. It smokes. It smells faintly of cooking meat. The light it casts is yellow and wavering, creating long dancing shadows on the log walls. But it is light. It pushes back the crushing darkness of the winter night. Under this humble glow, the family gathers. This is the center of your world. Ethan, your father's voice from his chair by the stove. He's carving something from a piece of pine, his knife making soft scraping sounds. Come here, son. You walk over. He hands you the piece he's been working on. It's a small wooden horse, no bigger than your palm. The details are rough but clear. You can see the mane, the powerful shoulders, the lifted front hoof. It's beautiful. For your little brother, your father says. For tomorrow morning, something new to play with. You look at him confused. But shouldn't we be conserving energy, not making things we don't need? Your father stops carving and looks at you directly. His eyes are deeply set, weathered by wind and sun and 45 Montana winters. But they're kind. Ethan, let me tell you about the Johansson brothers. You settle in. You know what's coming. A lesson in the form of a story. This is how your father teaches. Olaf and Sven Johansson. You remember their cabin? The big one up in the North Valley. You nod. You've passed it on hunting trips. A well-built structure bigger than yours with a stone foundation. Winter of 1880. The hard winter. The one that killed more cattle than any winter before or since. Your father's knife resumes its slow work carving the horse's tail. When the spring thaw came and the trails were passable again, a group of us rode up to check on the brothers. We knew they'd stocked up heavy for winter. They'd bought double supplies at the trading post in October. Everyone said they were set. He pauses. The knife stops. We found them dead, Ethan. Both of them, sitting at their table facing each other, like they'd been having a conversation and just stopped. Your mother has stopped her own work. Your sister has gone still. You've heard this story before, but it never gets easier. The strange thing was, there was still firewood stacked to the ceiling. There was still food in their bins. Flour, beans, salt pork. The cabin was well built, tight. No obvious cause of death. Then what? You begin. Sven kept a journal. We found it. The last entry was dated January 18th, middle of winter. He wrote one sentence. Can't see the point anymore. Nothing to do but wait. Your father looks at you now, and his expression is gentle but serious. They died because they gave up sun, not because the cold killed them, not because they ran out of supplies. They gave up because they couldn't find a reason to keep waking up every day. They lost the thread. They stopped talking to each other, stopped cooking proper meals, stopped maintaining routines. And then they stopped lighting fires. And then they stopped. He holds up the wooden horse. This is why we carve toys. Why your mother nurtures that sourdough starter like it's a seventh member of this family. Why Clara reads out loud from those newspapers on the walls every evening. Why we play that cat's cradle game with string until our fingers are sore. His voice drops lower, almost a whisper. These things aren't frivolous, Ethan. They're survival equipment. They're the difference between seeing spring and ending up like the Johansson brothers. The cold outside will kill you in an hour if you let it. But the cold inside, the kind that freezes your purpose, your will, that can kill you even while you're sitting next to a roaring fire with a full belly. He places the horse in your hand. Give this to your brother tomorrow. Watch his face light up. That's not extra work. That's the work. That's the whole job. You nod, understanding, settling into your bones like the cold settles into the cabin walls. Survival isn't just physical. It's meaning, purpose. The daily choice to remain human, to remain engaged, to care. Your mother begins preparing the evening meal. This is another ritual, another anchor point in the shapeless flow of winter days. She takes down a pot, a heavy iron Dutch oven, and fills it with water from the bucket near the stove. The water is kept here inside because water outside would freeze solid in minutes. She adds beans that have been soaking since morning. Then she opens one of the precious jars of preserved vegetables, carrots from last summer's garden, and adds them to the pot. She takes a chunk of salt pork from the hanging barrel in the cold entryway and cubes it with swift, practiced knife work. The meat goes into a separate pan to render its fat. The smell hits you immediately. Rich, savory, the scent of wood smoke and rendered fat that will cling to everything in this cabin until spring. It's the smell of survival, the smell of winter itself. As the salt pork sizzles, your mother works with the economy of movement that comes from years of cooking in small spaces. Her hands move with unconscious grace, cutting, stirring seasoning. You watch her add a pinch of dried sage from the herb bundle hanging above the stove. The scent blooms in the warm air, sharp and green, a memory of summer captured and preserved. She tastes the bean stew with a wooden spoon, considers, adds a bit more salt. Salt is precious, but not as precious as morale. A well-seasoned meal is medicine for the soul. The cabin fills with the smell of cooking food, and you see your younger siblings' faces brighten. Little Mary, who's been quiet and withdrawn for days, actually smiles. Your brother Thomas sits up straighter. Food is coming. Warmth is coming. The world is not entirely hostile. Your mother ladles the stew into wooden bowls, carved by your father 2 winters ago, each one slightly different, each one fitted to a family member's hands. Yours has a small carved star on the handle. You've eaten from this bowl 1,000 times, and it feels like an extension of your own hand. The first spoonful is almost too hot, but you don't care. The beans are creamy rich with pork fat. The carrots are soft. Sweet a reminder that things once grew in soil under sunshine. The broth is salty, savory, perfect. You eat slowly, making it last. There will be enough. Your mother always ensures there's enough. But you've learned not to rush. Food is not just fuel. It's an experience, a ritual, a way of marking time. Around the table, your family eats in companionable silence. The only sounds are spoons against wood, quiet, chewing the occasional sigh of satisfaction. Your father eats with his eyes half closed, savoring each bite. Clara tears pieces of bread and dips them in her broth the way she's done since she was small. Your mother eats last as always, making sure everyone else has finished before she takes her full share. This meal will be remembered, you think. Years from now, when you're older, you'll remember this. The dim lamplight, the warmth of the stove, the taste of salt pork and beans, the faces of your family around this rough-hewn table. You'll remember that you were hungry, and you were fed. You were cold, and you were warmed. You were together, and that was enough. Clara, bread time, your mother says. Your sister moves to the corner where a ceramic crock sits wrapped in towels. She unwraps it carefully, reverently. Inside is old Betsy, the sourdough starter that your family has kept alive for 2 years now. This is not just yeast and flour. This is life. This is insurance against starvation. If you have sourdough starter, you can always make bread even when commercial yeast is unavailable or costs more than gold. But keeping it alive in 50 below temperatures is its own challenge. The cold wants to kill it. So every night before bed, your mother tucks that crock inside her nightgown against her body, letting her own warmth keep the culture alive through the coldest hours. She calls it babysitting Betsy, a small joke that hides a serious reality. You've watched her do this enough times that it seems normal now. But you remember the first time you saw it when you were younger, and you asked her why? Because if old Betsy dies, she said, we lose our safety net. We lose our backup plan. And out here on this frontier, you can't afford to lose your backups. Clara measures out flour, adds a cup of the starter, a pinch of precious salt, more water. She kneads the dough by the warmth of the stove. You can see her breath even inside. That's how cold it is away from the fire. But near the stove, it's almost warm, almost comfortable. While the bread rises, a slow process in this cold, the family gathers around the table. This is the hour before sleep. The hour when in summer you might have gone outside to watch the sunset or walk to a neighbor's cabin for visiting. But now in winter, outside is an alien planet, a place where humans cannot survive. So this cabin is your entire universe. Clara, would you read to us? Your mother asks. Your sister smiles. She stands and walks to the wall where the newspapers are pasted. She runs her finger along the columns of text, searching for something interesting. She finds a piece about the Brooklyn Bridge completed last year in New York. The bridge spans 1,595 feet. She reads aloud in her clear voice. making it the longest suspension bridge in the world. Workers reported that the view from the top of the towers was unlike anything they had experienced, with all of New York and Brooklyn spread before them like a map. You close your eyes and try to imagine it. A bridge that long, a city that big. It's almost impossible. Your whole world right now is 20 feet by 16 feet. The idea of 1,595 feet of anything is incomprehensible. But that's the point. Clara is giving you all a window, a reminder that the world is still out there, still turning, still building bridges and lighting electric lights and doing impossible things. It's a gift. It's medicine. As Clara reads, you become aware of the background noise of your life. The silence out here is not empty. It is heavy. It presses against the cabin like water against a submarine. But inside, there are the small human sounds that tether you to reality. The rhythmic swish-click of your mother's knitting needles. She is making socks, always socks, because socks wear out faster than anything else. The soft, rhythmic chewing of your father on a piece of dried venison. The shifting of wood in the stove. These sounds are a symphony of continuity. If they stopped, the silence of the prairie would rush in and drown you. Your father carves his toys. Your mother kneads bread that won't be baked until morning. Your younger siblings play with a ball of string, making cat's cradle patterns between their hands. A game that costs nothing, requires no materials, burns no firewood, and keeps their fingers nimble and their minds engaged. This is the work of sleep preparation, not just banking the fire and checking the doors, but banking your spirit, making sure that when you wake tomorrow, you'll still want to wake, that you'll still see the point. At 8 o'clock, your mother pulls the bread from the oven. The smell floods the cabin, yeasty, warm, alive. She cuts slices that are still steaming and spreads them with precious butter that your family traded for at the last community gathering. The butter is stored in the cold entryway, frozen solid. She has to scrape it with a knife. You eat slowly, savoring every bite. This bread is more than food. It's proof that your family can create, that even in this frozen prison surrounded by death, you can make something warm and nourishing and good. After the meal, your father begins the final ritual of the evening, the family bed. This is not something you do every night, only on the coldest nights. The nights when the wind sounds like it's trying to tear the roof off. The nights when you can see frost forming on the inside of the door despite all your insulation efforts. Tonight is one of those nights. Your father takes the table and moves it to one side. Then he and your mother pull the children's sleeping pallets from the corner and arrange them in the center of the room directly in front of the stove. They layer them with extra blankets. "All right, everyone," your mother says. "Winter quarters." You know what to do. You've done this before. You lie down in the center and your siblings arrange themselves around you. Your parents lie on the outside edges, creating a human wall that traps body heat in the middle. Then your mother does something extraordinary. She takes one of the large quilts, a heavy one pieced from old coats and canvas, and drapes it over all of you. But she doesn't just lay it flat. She tucks the edges under the pallets, creating a sealed tent, a human nest. Inside this cocoon, you can feel the warmth building. 6 bodies all generating heat, the trapped air warming up degree by degree. Within minutes, you're warmer than you've been all day. This is radical intimacy. You can feel your father's steady breathing on one side, your mother's softer rhythm on the other. You can hear your sister's heartbeat where her shoulder presses against yours. You can smell the faint scent of wood smoke in everyone's hair, the slightly sour smell of wool that hasn't been washed in weeks because washing requires melting snow and using precious firewood. In the modern world, this would be claustrophobic, invasive, too close. But here now, it's safety, it's survival, it's the ancient human knowledge that we are warmer together. You will not sleep through the night. No one does. You sleep in 2 shifts, what the old folks call first sleep and second sleep. You will drift off now exhausted and wake around midnight when your father gets up to tend the fire. In that waking hour in the quiet dark, there is often whispering. Your parents discussing supplies. Clara telling a soft story to the little ones. It is a time of gentle wakefulness before the second deeper sleep takes you until dawn. This broken rhythm is not insomnia. It is the natural rhythm of a world before electric lights. Your mother's voice drifts through the darkness. Tomorrow, if the wind dies down, your father and I will check on the O'Connor brothers. Clara, you'll be in charge here. Ethan, you'll help her keep the fire going. Yes, Mum, Clara says softly. The O'Connors are new, your father adds. Strong boys, but they don't know winter yet. They'll need checking on. You think about this. The O'Connor brothers, Liam and Sean. You've met them a few times. Big men with bright red hair and thick Irish accents. They're friendly and full of jokes and stories. They seem invincible. But you've learned that nobody is invincible out here. Not even the strong. Especially not the strong if they don't have knowledge to go with their strength. Will they be okay? You ask. Your father is quiet for a moment. If they listen, he finally says. If they're willing to learn, that's the difference. Not strength, not youth, willingness to learn. The fire in the stove burns low, casting flickering orange light through the cracks around the door. You can hear the wind outside, a constant presence. But in here, in this nest of family warmth, it seems distant, manageable. Your mother begins to hum, an old hymn, something from her childhood in Pennsylvania before she came west. Your father joins in softly. The sound vibrates through the close space, and you feel it more than hear it. Feel it in your chest, in your bones. This is how humans survived ice ages, you think. Clustered together in caves, sharing warmth and stories and songs. You're doing something ancient, something that predates civilization itself. Your eyes grow heavy. The warmth, the full belly, the sound of your family breathing around you, it all pulls you down towards sleep. But before you drift off completely, you feel your father's hand rest briefly on your shoulder. A squeeze, an acknowledgement. You're becoming a man, that gesture says. You're learning the work. I'm proud of you. And then you sleep there in the heart of winter, in the heart of your family, while the cold world rages outside and the fire burns low and the night stretches on toward a distant spring. You wake to your mother's gentle shake. The cabin is completely dark except for the faint red glow from the stove. Your internal clock is confused. Is it midnight? 3 a.m.? You have no idea. Fire time, Ethan, she whispers. Your father's asking for you. You extract yourself from the warm nest of family bodies, carefully so as not to wake the younger ones, and immediately feel the cold hit you. Even inside, even with the fire going, the temperature away from the stove has dropped to just above freezing. You can see your breath. Frost has formed on your eyelashes while you slept. You blink, feeling the tiny crystals crack. You pull on an extra wool shirt and thick socks, then make your way to the stove where your father is crouched studying the coals. "What do you see?" he asks quietly. This is a test. He's been teaching you to read fires since October. You crouch beside him and look through the open stove door. The oak logs from bedtime have burned down to a bed of coals, glowing red in the center, ash grey at the edges. You reach your hand near not in, never in the opening, and feel the heat. Coals are still strong, you say. Good heat in the middle. But the ash is building up. It's insulating them, slowing the burn. Your father nods. What do? You take the poker and gently disturb the ash layer, breaking it up so the coals beneath can breathe and burn hotter. Then you add 2 medium-sized pieces of pine. Pine because it catches quickly, because you need flame more than you need long-burning heat right now. Good, your father says. He hands you a cup of water, not warm water, cold water from the bucket. You drink it down. It tastes metallic mineral. This is snowmelt boiled yesterday and allowed to cool. Listen, your father says. You go still and listen to the cabin. At first, you hear nothing unusual. The fire crackling softly, the wind outside. But then you hear what your father is directing you toward a creaking sound, a groan, the logs settling. The cabin's talking, your father says. That's the sound of wood contracting in extreme cold. The logs shrink, the joints flex. It's normal, but you need to know what normal sounds like, so if something abnormal happens, a crack, a structural failure, you'll recognize it. You listen for another minute. The groaning continues regular as a heartbeat. The cabin breathing, the cabin alive. Your father stands and stretches. You can hear his joints pop. He's 45, but the frontier has made him older. The hard work, the constant stress of keeping a family alive in this environment. He moves like a man of 60. "I'm going outside," he says, "to check the weather and bring in more wood. You stay here and manage the fire." You nod. Your father begins the process of dressing for outside. First, an extra layer of wool, then his canvas coat, then his buffalo robe, a heavy hide that makes him look twice his size. Buffalo are nearly gone now. Your father got this robe from a trader who said there were maybe only a few hundred left in the whole territory. Used to be millions blanketing the plains. Now they're ghosts, like so much else out here. Then a wool scarf wrapped around his face, leaving only his eyes exposed. Then thick mittens with separate woolen glove liners underneath. Then he reaches for a small tin kept near the stove warmth. Inside is a pungent mixture of rendered bear grease and beeswax. He scoops out a glob and smears it thick over his cheeks, his nose, and the exposed skin around his eyes. It looks greasy and primal, but this is armor. The grease creates a seal preventing the moisture in his skin from freezing instantly upon contact with the 60 below air. Without it, his skin would crack and bleed within minutes. He looks like a creature from mythology, barely human anymore, just a shape, a bundle of insulation and fur. He goes through the door system. Inner door, airlock space, outer door. Each time a door opens, cold air rushes in, and you feel it across the entire room. It's shocking, physical, like being slapped. Then he's gone, and the doors are closed again. You wait, counting heartbeats. Your job is to listen. If something goes wrong, if he slips, if he's injured, if the cold overwhelms him, you need to be ready to act. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The cabin's warmth slowly reasserts itself. 3 minutes. You can hear muffled sounds from outside, the scrape of wood being lifted, the thud of logs being stacked. Then the outer door opens again. Your father backs in arms loaded with firewood. He kicks the door shut with his boot, crosses the airlock space, nudges the inner door open with his shoulder. He drops the armload of wood into the box near the stove. His face is bright red where the skin was exposed around his eyes. Frost has formed on his eyebrows and in his beard. He looks mythical, ancient. Your father stands in the airlock for a moment, ice coating him like armor, and in the flickering firelight, he looks like a figure from old stories. The kind of man who would hunt mammoths across frozen tundra. The kind of man who would face down wolves with nothing but a spear and will. But then he blinks, and the ice cracks around his eyes, and he's just your father again. Silas Bennett, 45 years old, a farmer from Pennsylvania who came west with dreams and stayed through stubbornness. Bad, he says again, his voice rough from the cold. Bad out there. Your mother doesn't speak. She just moves to him, helping peel away the frozen layers. The buffalo robe crackles as she lifts it off his shoulders. Underneath his canvas coat is stiff with cold. His scarf has frozen to his beard, and your mother has to warm it with her hands before she can unwrap it. When his face is finally exposed, you see the deep red of cold burn on his cheeks, and the way his lips are chapped and bleeding slightly. He's only been outside for 5 minutes, maybe 6. But those 6 minutes have marked him. He lets your mother guide him to the chair closest to the stove. He sits heavily, and for the first time you can remember, he looks old. Truly old. The frontier is aging him, you realize. Every winter takes something from him that won't come back. Every trip into the killing cold steals a bit of his strength, his warmth, his life. But he would do it again tomorrow. Because the wood needs bringing in. Because the weather needs checking. Because survival requires these small acts of courage, repeated endlessly until spring. Your mother kneels beside him and takes his hands in hers. They're red and swollen, the fingers stiff. She rubs them gently, carefully, knowing that too much pressure on cold, damaged flesh can cause more harm than good. "I'm all right, Ilara," your father says quietly. "I know," she replies, but she doesn't stop rubbing his hands. You watch them together, your parents partners in this hard life, sharing the burden of keeping everyone alive, and something swells in your chest. It's not quite love, though. Love is part of it. It's bigger than that. It's gratitude, awe, the recognition that you are witnessing something profound, 2 people choosing every single day to stay, to fight, to survive together. Your father meets your eyes across the cabin, and he nods. Just once. A small gesture that says, "This is what it takes, son. This is the cost. Are you willing to pay it?" And you nod back. "Yes, yes, I am." He says nothing, just begins stripping off the layers. The buffalo robe, the canvas coat, the scarf. His hands are shaking slightly. Not from weakness, but from the cold. Even that brief exposure has chilled him. Your mother is awake now. She's heated water on the stove, and she pours it into a cup for your father. He wraps his hands around it, absorbing the warmth. Steam rises from the cup, and for a moment the cabin smells like moisture and metal. A smell you've almost forgotten. In winter, everything is dry, parched. This brief humidity feels like a gift. "How is it?" your mother asks quietly. Your father takes a slow sip. "Bad. The wind's from the north. The sky's clear. That means no cloud insulation. It'll get colder before morning. I'd say we're close to 60 below right now. 60 below zero. That's 92 degrees below freezing. At that temperature, the moisture in your breath freezes before it leaves your mouth. Your eyelashes freeze together if you blink too slowly. Steel snaps like glass. Skin freezes solid in less than a minute. "The O'Connors?" your mother asks. Your father shakes his head. "Can't check them tonight. Too dangerous. If something happened to me out there, you and the children wouldn't survive the rest of the winter. We'll go tomorrow if the wind drops." This is the calculation, the brutal math of frontier survival. Even checking on neighbors, an act of compassion of community, must be weighed against risk. If the risk is too high, you don't go. You can't go. Because your first responsibility is to your own family. It's a hard teaching, but it's honest. Your father finishes his water and nods toward the stove. "Let's build it back up. This cold isn't letting up." Together, you add more wood. Not too much you can't afford to burn through your supply too quickly, but enough. Enough to keep the cabin above freezing until dawn. When the fire is stable, your father returns to the family nest. You start to follow, but he stops you. "Ethan, you did good tonight. You read the fire correctly. You listened to the cabin. Those are skills that will keep you and your future family alive." He pauses. "I know this winter is hard. I know you miss running outside, miss having space to yourself. But you're learning something more valuable than any book knowledge. You're learning how to live. How to really live in a world that's trying to kill you." He grips your shoulder briefly, then returns to his spot in the nest. You sit by the stove for a few more minutes, watching the flames dance. The fire is hypnotic, endless in its variations. No two moments are the same. You think about the Johansen brothers sitting in their cabin with plenty of wood, plenty of food, and still dying because they lost the thread, because they couldn't find meaning in the simple act of maintaining the fire. You understand now. The fire isn't just providing heat. The fire is giving you purpose. Every 3 hours someone has to wake, has to make decisions, has to act. You remain human through action, through care, through the small rituals that say we choose to survive. You add one more piece of wood, a thick oak log that will burn slowly until morning. And then you return to the family nest, sliding carefully back into your spot. The warmth receives you. Your mother murmurs something sleepy and welcoming. Your little brother shifts against your side, still deeply asleep. Outside, the wind howls. Inside, you are warm. And warm, you sleep again. Morning comes late. The cabin is dim, even when morning has technically arrived, because the windows are shuttered and the winter sun is weak even at its zenith. Your mother is up first always. You hear her moving quietly, stoking the fire, putting on water for the morning meal. The smell of wood smoke and oat porridge fills the cabin. These are the smells of winter, constant, unchanging, oddly comforting in their familiarity. There's something else in that smell too. The barrel of wood your father keeps beside the stove, releasing its piney scent as it warms. It's pleasant, this smell. A reminder that the world contains more than cold. The trees grew in sunshine. That warmth exists. When everyone is awake and the morning meal has been eaten, your father makes an announcement. The wind's dropped. Temperatures still brutal but manageable. Ilara and I are going to check on the O'Connor brothers. Clara, you're in charge. Ethan, you help her. We should be back by early afternoon. If we're not back by dark, He pauses. This is the conversation no one wants to have. If we're not back by dark, you keep the fire going. You stay inside and you wait. Do not come looking for us. Understood? You all nod. The rules are clear. In winter, you don't risk additional lives trying to save someone who might already be dead. Your parents begin the elaborate process of dressing for the journey, layer upon layer. Your mother packs a small bag with supplies: bread, dried meat, a jar of rendered fat, a small container of sourdough starter. These are gifts, but they're also strategic. If the O'Connors are in trouble, these items might save them. If they're low on wood, your father says, loading his pack with a small axe and a length of rope, we'll help them cut more. If they're sick, Elara knows medicine. If they're... He doesn't finish the sentence. If they're dead, he means, if we find them, like the Johansson brothers. Your parents leave through the door system, and suddenly the cabin feels enormous and empty, even though there are still 4 of you here. Your father's presence is stabilizing. Without him, the responsibility settles heavier on Clara's shoulders, and on yours. All right, Clara says, taking charge naturally. Ethan, keep the fire steady. Not too hot, we need to conserve wood. Thomas, you and Mary practice your letters on the slate. I'm going to work on mending. The morning passes slowly. You tend the fire, adding wood every 20 minutes, adjusting the damper, monitoring the heat. It's boring work, tedious, but it's essential. The fire is life. Around midday, you hear something unusual, a sound from outside. Voices. Clara moves to the door immediately, her body tense. Voices can mean neighbors, but they can also mean trouble. Lost travelers, desperate people thieves. On the frontier, you don't open your door without knowing who's there. Hello, the cabin, a voice calls. Male, young, accented, Irish. Clara relaxes slightly. It's the O'Connors, she says. She opens the door system carefully. Liam and Sean O'Connor are standing outside, bundled in inadequate coats, their faces red and wind-burned. Behind them, you can see your parents. Everyone crowds inside. The cabin suddenly feels very full. Your father is carrying a load of items, clearly belongings from the O'Connor cabin. The brothers look embarrassed. Sit, your mother says, gesturing to the chairs by the stove. Warm up. Clara heats some water. While Clara prepares hot drinks, your father explains. The O'Connors built a good cabin, but they didn't insulate properly, didn't bank the walls, didn't seal the windows right. Last night with that wind, they nearly froze, even with their fire going full blast. They were burning through wood at triple the rate they should have been. Sean O'Connor, the younger brother, looks down at his hands. We're fools, he says quietly. We thought strength and work ethic were enough. We didn't understand this. He gestures vaguely at the cabin walls, the insulated windows, the carefully managed fire. Your father's voice is kind but firm. Strength gets you through summer. Knowledge gets you through winter. You boys are going to stay with us for the next few days. We're going to show you how to retrofit your cabin properly, how to manage your fire efficiently, how to layer clothing, how to recognize frostbite before it costs you fingers or toes. This is frontier community in action. Not charity, not pity, just the practical understanding that everyone's survival depends on everyone else's knowledge. A dead neighbor is a lost source of labor trade and mutual aid. A living neighbor who's learned from near disaster is an asset to the whole community. They treated it like the temporary shelters they used on the railroad, not a permanent winter home. Over the next 3 days, the O'Connor brothers become students. They watch how your father maintains the fire. They help bank the outside of your cabin with additional insulation, learning the technique as they work. Your mother teaches them about food preparation, how to make meals that are nutritious but fuel efficient, how to render fat, how to make the most of every scrap. In the evenings, crammed into your small cabin with 8 people now, instead of 6, the space feels even more claustrophobic. But it also feels richer. On the second evening of the O'Connor brothers' stay, after the supper dishes have been cleared and the fire banked low, Sean O'Connor reaches into his pack and pulls out something wrapped in oiled cloth. "May I?" he asks, looking to your father. Your father nods. Sean unwraps the cloth carefully and reverently and reveals a tin whistle, a simple metal tube with 6 holes, no longer than your forearm. It's dented and tarnished, clearly well used, clearly well loved. "This was my grandfather's," Sean says, quietly turning it over in his hands. "Came with us from County Cork. He played it in the old country. My father played it. And now," he raises it to his lips. The first note cuts through the cabin like a silver thread. It's high and clear and achingly beautiful. Sean's fingers dance over the holes, and suddenly the tiny, cramped, smoke-filled cabin is filled with music. Not just sound, music, melody, life. He plays a jig first, something bright and bouncing that makes your little brother's feet start tapping involuntarily. The tune is fast, intricate, full of ornamental runs and trills that seem impossible on such a simple instrument. Your mother's hands pause in her knitting. Clara stops mending. Everyone is listening transfixed. When the jig ends, Sean transitions immediately into a slow air, a melody so mournful, so filled with longing, that you feel your throat tighten. This is the sound of homesickness, the sound of green fields and ocean spray, and a world lost across an ocean. Your mother's eyes glisten. "That one's called The Parting Glass," Liam says softly. "It's what we play when we're saying goodbye to someone, when we're remembering who we used to be." The melody winds through the cabin like smoke, touching everyone, settling into your bones. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. For these few minutes, you're not trapped in a frozen cabin in Montana territory. You're somewhere else, somewhere the music takes you. When Sean finally lowers the whistle, there's a moment of profound silence. Then your father speaks. "That was a gift," he says. "Thank you." Sean nods, his eyes bright. "Music is survival too," he says. "Back in Ireland during the famine years, people were starving, dying in the fields. But at night, they'd still gather and play, still sing. My grandfather said that's how he knew they'd survive. Because even in the worst of it, they made beauty. They made joy." He looks around at all of you. You can take everything from a person, their land, their food, their warmth, but you can't take their music. You can't take their stories. Those belong to the soul. And the soul, he taps his chest. The soul can survive anything. Liam clears his throat. "Should I tell them about the pucha, Sean?" Your younger siblings' heads snap up. "What's a pucha?" Thomas asks. And just like that, the evening transforms into something magical. Liam tells stories from Irish folklore tales of fairy folk and shapeshifters, of mysterious creatures that haunt the bogs and forests of the old country. He tells them in the old style, half singing, half speaking, his voice rising and falling dramatically. Your mother contributes a Pennsylvania ghost story. Your father tells a tale from his childhood about a mysterious light that used to appear in the woods behind his family's farm. Even Clara shares a story she read once about a haunted lighthouse on the Atlantic coast. The hours slip by unnoticed. The cabin no longer feels small. It feels full, rich, alive with voices and laughter, and the occasional shiver of delicious fear when a story takes a dark turn. At one point, Sean plays again, this time teaching your father a simple folk tune on the whistle. Your father's thick, work-worn fingers fumble over the holes, producing more squeaks than notes. But everyone laughs, and your father laughs loudest of all. "I'll stick to farming," he says, handing the whistle back. "Music and stories." Your mother says later, after the O'Connors have bedded down and the family is preparing for sleep. That's what we're really storing up for winter. Not just wood and food, joy, beauty, reasons to remember we're human. She's right, you realize. The tin whistle weighs nothing, takes up no space, burns no firewood, but it might be the most valuable thing in this cabin right now. Because it reminds you winter is temporary, music is eternal. And even in the darkest cold, humans can still create light. Sean O'Connor plays a tin whistle, and the music, Irish jigs and slow airs, fills the cabin with beauty. Liam tells stories about Ireland, about the green fields and the rain that never stops painting pictures of a world so different from Montana winter that it might as well be fiction. He tells about working the rails too, how the Northern Pacific pushed west, how they'd laid track in weather, so cold the steel would crack under the hammer. "We thought that was hard," Liam says quietly. "We didn't know what hard was." Your family shares knowledge. The O'Connors share culture. It's a fair trade, more than fair. On the fourth day, when the temperature rises to a warm 20 below, the O'Connor brothers return to their cabin armed with knowledge and extra supplies. Your father and Ethan go with them, spending the day helping to properly insulate their walls, seal their windows, and reorganize their firewood storage. When you return home that evening, exhausted from the physical work, your father says something that sticks with you. "That's what community means out here, Ethan. It's not social clubs and church socials like back east. It's survival insurance. It's distributed knowledge. Every person who learns how to winter properly makes all of us safer. Because next time when we're the ones in trouble, the O'Connors will be the ones checking on us. That's the network. That's the safety net. And it only works if everyone contributes." You think about this as you fall asleep that night. The idea that survival is social, not individual. That the strongest person alone is weaker than the average person connected to others. It's a profound teaching, one that contradicts the mythology of the lone frontiersman, the rugged individual who needs no one. The truth you're learning is more complex and more beautiful. The truth is that humans survive together or not at all. 3 weeks into January, your mother decides it's time for an education session. This happens irregularly through the winter times when the family gathers specifically to learn something new, to pass on knowledge that might one day save a life. Today's topic, understanding cold. "Ethan," your mother says, "explain to me what cold is." You think about it. It's the opposite of hot. Your mother smiles. That's what most people think. But cold isn't a thing in itself. It's the absence of heat. Heat is energy, the motion of tiny particles that make up everything around us. When those particles move faster, we feel heat. When they slow down, we feel cold. Cold is just stillness, silence at the smallest level. She pours water from the kettle into a cup, letting you feel the warmth rising from it. Everything wants to equalize, she continues. Hot things want to become cold. Cold things want to become hot. They want to meet in the middle. That's why heat always flows from hot to cold, never the reverse. And that means our cabin, which we've worked so hard to keep warm, is constantly losing heat to the freezing air outside. Every second of every day, heat is leaking out through these walls, through that door, up through the chimney. Our job is to slow that leak as much as possible. Your father joins the lesson. There are 3 ways heat moves, he says. Conduction, convection, and radiation. Ethan, when you touch the cold floor with your bare feet, that's conduction heat, flowing directly from your warm feet into the cold wood. When hot air rises from the stove and cold air sinks toward the floor, that's convection heat moving through the air itself. And when you feel the warmth of the fire on your face, even from across the room, that's radiation heat, traveling as invisible light. He walks to the cabin wall and raps it with his knuckles. Every layer of insulation we've added, the moss chinking the banked earth, the newspaper, the quilts, all of that is fighting conduction. We're creating barriers of still air, because still air is an excellent insulator. Moving air, on the other hand, is terrible. That's why wind chill is so dangerous. The wind strips away the thin layer of warm air that your body naturally creates around itself, forcing your body to constantly generate more heat to replace it. You can survive naked in still air at 32 degrees for hours, but in blizzards, minutes. Your mother takes up the teaching. Your body is a furnace. Every calorie of food you eat is fuel for that furnace. Even when you're sleeping, your body is burning energy to maintain its 98.6 degree temperature. But you're not very efficient. Most of the heat you generate radiates away uselessly into the air around you. That's why we sleep together on the coldest nights. We're capturing and sharing that waste heat. She brings out the jar of rendered fat, precious bear fat that your father harvested last fall. This, she says, is the most calorie-dense food we have. Fat contains more than twice the energy per ounce as meat or flour. In summer, we eat fat for flavor. In winter, we eat fat for survival. It's fuel for your internal furnace. Your father eats twice as much fat as you do. Why? You think? Because he's bigger. Because he does the outside work. Your mother corrects gently. Every time he goes out into that killing cold, his body goes into crisis mode. His metabolism spikes, burning fuel frantically to stay warm. A trip to the woodpile that takes 5 minutes might burn the same calories as an hour of summer farm work. So we adjust. We eat more. We eat smarter. We don't waste energy on unnecessary movement. Clara asks a question. Why do we wear wool instead of cotton? Your mother beams. Excellent question. Cotton is wonderful in summer. It breathes, it's comfortable. But if cotton gets wet from sweat or melted snow, it loses all its insulating ability. Wet cotton actually conducts heat away from your body. People die in wet cotton. Wool, on the other hand, even when it's damp, maintains its structure. The fibers trap air. They insulate even when wet. Wool can save your life. Cotton can kill you. Your father shifts the topic. Ethan, what are you wearing on your feet right now? You look down. 2 pairs of wool socks, and my boots are by the door. Go get one, your father says. You retrieve one of your leather boots, standard frontier footwear made by the cobbler in the nearest town last fall. It's well-constructed, sturdy, with a thick sole. You're proud of these boots. Your father takes it and holds it up for everyone to see. This boot, he says, is trying to kill you. You blink, confused. Leather? Your father continues, is animal skin. And skin is designed to do one thing very well: transfer heat. That's how our bodies cool down in summer. Heat moves from our blood through our skin into the air. But in winter, that's exactly what you don't want. He sets the boot down near the stove, then places his hand on it. Feel this. You touch the leather. Even though it's been sitting inside, it's cold. Noticeably colder than the wood floor, colder than the table. Leather drinks cold, your mother adds. It absorbs it. Hold it in your hands, and it pulls warmth out of you like a thirsty man pulls water from a well. And once leather gets wet, from snow, from sweat, it becomes even worse. Wet leather against your skin. That's a recipe for frostbite. Your father nods. I've seen men lose toes because they wore leather boots in deep cold. The leather froze solid. Their feet froze inside them, and by the time they got somewhere warm, the damage was done. So, what do we do? You ask. Your mother stands and goes to the storage area. She returns with something you've seen her working on for weeks, but didn't understand: strange oversized socks made from rabbit fur. These, she says, are duffel socks, made from rabbit pelts your father trapped last fall. The fur faces inward against your skin. Then you put your regular wool socks over them. Then you put these on. She produces another item, what looks like a soft leather slipper, but much larger, lined with more fur. These are muklaks, based on what the native tribes use. They're made from soft smoked moose hide that your father traded for. The hide is treated with fish oil and brain tanning, which keeps it flexible even in extreme cold. But the real secret is this. She turns the mukluk inside out. Thick insulation, fur, grass, wool, all layered together. And see this. She points to the sole. No hard leather sole, just more soft hide with a layer of woven grass inside. It flexes with your foot, doesn't conduct cold. Your father puts his hand inside one of the mukluks. Still cold to touch, but it doesn't pull heat from you the way leather does. And because it's soft, you can wear multiple layers of socks underneath without cutting off circulation. He looks at you seriously. Here's what you need to understand the boots you wore all summer, the ones you think of as good boots. They'll kill you in winter. The white settlers who come west wearing their fancy eastern leather boots, half of them lose toes or feet their first winter, because they don't understand that winter requires completely different equipment. Your mother continues. The native tribes have survived here for hundreds, maybe thousands of winters. They know things we're only beginning to learn. And one of those things is, this in extreme cold you don't want hard. You don't want stiff. You want soft, flexible, insulated. You want materials that trap air, not materials that conduct heat. She hands you a pair of the duffel socks. Put these on. You do. The fur is incredibly soft against your skin, and the warmth is immediate. Then you add your wool socks over them. Then you slip your feet into the mukluks. It feels strange, almost like wearing very thick, soft slippers instead of boots. But within seconds, your feet feel warmer than they have in weeks. You'll wear these whenever you go outside, your mother says. Your leather boots can wait until spring. Right now, they're just expensive decoration. That night, you lie in your bedroll with the duffel socks still on, and your feet are genuinely warm for the first time in months. You wiggle your toes, marveling at the sensation. It's such a small thing, just footwear. But it's the difference between keeping your toes and losing them. Between walking normally next summer and hobbling on frozen stumps. You think about all the knowledge your parents carry. Knowledge about clothing, shelter, food, fire. Knowledge passed down, learned, painfully adapted from other cultures who learned it before. Survival isn't instinct, it's education. And every lesson might save your life. The lesson continues. Your father explains frostbite, how it's not the cold itself that damages tissue, but the ice crystals that form in your cells, rupturing them from within. He shows you how to recognize the early signs: white, waxy skin, numbness, tingling. He explains the treatment: gradual rewarming, never rapid, never with direct heat. Your mother explains hypothermia, how your body prioritizes keeping the core warm, sacrificing the extremities. How the first sign is often mental confusion, making the victim unable to help themselves. How someone can die of hypothermia in above freezing temperatures if they're wet and the wind is blowing. These aren't abstract lessons. These are essential winter survival skills. Every winter, someone dies on the frontier because they didn't understand these principles. Because they thought they could tough it out, could push through, could rely on grit and determination. But cold doesn't care about grit. Cold is physics, and physics doesn't negotiate. The old-timers have a saying, your father concludes, respect the cold, but don't fear it. Understand it, learn its rules, follow those rules precisely, and you'll survive. Get cocky, get careless, get ignorant. The cold will kill you without malice, without mercy. It's not evil, it's just indifferent. And indifference can be more dangerous than hatred. That night, lying in your bedroll, you think about what you've learned. The cabin around you isn't just shelter. It's a carefully engineered system designed to slow entropy, to capture and hold the precious warmth that keeps you alive. Every log in that wall, every piece of chinking, every quilt hung against the draft, they're all part of a complex machine with one purpose: to maintain a temperature differential between inside and out. It's humbling and it's empowering. Because now you understand not just what to do, but why. And understanding why makes the endless, repetitive work meaningful. You're not just tending a fire, you're fighting entropy. You're maintaining order against chaos. You're keeping a tiny pocket of life intact in a universe that tends toward cold darkness and death. It's a battle you'll fight every day until spring. And now you know exactly what you're fighting against and how to win. February arrives, though you only know this because your mother marks the calendar she keeps hidden in her personal box. She doesn't share the date unless someone asks. There's a reason for this. In winter, knowing the date can be dangerous. Why? You ask her one afternoon. Why don't we keep track more precisely? Your mother is mending a torn shirt, her needle moving in and out with practiced efficiency. The cabin is dim as always. Outside, another blizzard is building. You can hear the wind's pitch rising. Because your mother says carefully, if you know exactly how many days you've been trapped inside, and you know exactly how many more days you likely have to endure, it can break your spirit. Some people do better counting forward, but I've found most people do better just taking each day as it comes. One day, then another, not thinking about the mountain of days still ahead. She ties off her thread and looks at you directly. The Johansen brothers. God rest them, they made the mistake of counting. Sven's journal was full of it. Day 47, still snowed in. Day 52, supplies still adequate but monotonous. Day 68, why are we doing this? He was measuring his prison sentence, and eventually the sentence felt too long to serve. She reaches out and touches your hand gently. We don't do that. We don't count. We just live. Today we have enough wood. Today we have enough food. Today we are warm enough. Today we have each other. Tomorrow is a problem for tomorrow. It's a profound lesson in mindfulness, though she doesn't call it that. She calls it staying sane. But even mindfulness has its limits. Sometimes the spirit needs more than just survival. It needs joy. One afternoon, when the wind dies down slightly, your mother enacts a special ritual. She takes the last of the maple syrup traded for back in autumn and heats it in a small pot until it bubbles. She instructs you to fill a pan with clean packed snow from outside. Then, with a flourish, she pours the hot amber liquid in ribbons over the snow. It hardens instantly into snow candy. Taffy. The shock of sugar, the chewy texture, the sudden burst of flavor in a diet of beans and salt pork. It is overwhelming. You watch your little brother's eyes go wide. For 10 minutes, no one speaks. You just chew, tasting the memory of trees and summer sun trapped in the sugar. It is a reminder that the world can be sweet. A few nights later, when it's just your family again, your father introduces a new evening activity. When I was a boy, he says, we played a game called Bones. All you need is... He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small leather pouch. Inside are 5 small bones, vertebrae from a rabbit cleaned and polished smooth. The rules are simple, he explains. You toss all 5 bones. However they land, that's your hand. You can tell a story based on how they fall, or you can use them to predict the weather, or you can just try to guess how they'll land before you throw. It sounds ridiculous, but within minutes, everyone is engaged. Thomas develops an elaborate mythology about what each bone represents. Clara turns it into a mathematical game, calculating probabilities. Your mother uses the bones as a fortune-telling device, inventing increasingly absurd predictions that have everyone laughing. The bones say, Clara will marry a riverboat captain. The bones say, Ethan will grow a beard down to his knees. It's silly, it's meaningless, and it's perfect, because it's something to do, something to focus on besides the cold and the dark and the endless waiting. It costs nothing, requires nothing, but it gives you something priceless: distraction, engagement, joy. These small rituals, the music, the stories, the games, they're not frivolous. They're survival equipment just as essential as the firewood and food. They keep the interior cold from taking root. They keep you human. They keep hope alive. Your father has his own strategies for managing time. He keeps busy with small projects. This week, he's repairing a harness that broke last fall. Next week, he'll reinforce the hen house empty now. The chickens were slaughtered in November, their meat smoked and preserved. The week after, he'll carve a new rake handle to replace one that cracked. None of these projects are urgent. They're just purpose. They're ways to mark time, to have something to show for each day, to avoid the paralysis of meaningless waiting. Clara reads. She's read every newspaper on the walls 3 times. She's read the family Bible cover to cover twice. She reads recipes in the almanac even though you don't have the ingredients to make them. The reading itself is the point. It's mental exercise. It's keeping her mind sharp for the world she'll return to when spring finally comes. You ask your father once, how did people survive before they had books, before they had paper? He thinks about this. They told stories, they sang songs, they made art with whatever materials they had. Humans have been surviving winters for thousands of years long before we had any of this. He gestures at the cabin, the stove, the printed pages on the wall. Our ancestors survived winters in caves with nothing but fire and furs. They did it by being together, by speaking, by creating meaning out of nothing. We're not doing anything new. We're just doing the old things with slightly better tools. This reframes everything. You're not pioneers. You're the latest chapter in an ancient story. Every human who's ever lived through winter has faced these same challenges, these same psychological traps. And they survived. Which means you can too. One night, deep in February, the wind reaches a pitch that's almost unbearable. The cabin shakes. You can hear debris, probably broken branches, hitting the walls. The sound is like being inside a drum while someone beats it irregularly from the outside. Your younger siblings are frightened. Mary, who's 8, starts to cry softly. Your mother pulls her close. This is just noise, your mother says calmly, projecting a peace she might not entirely feel. The cabin is strong. Your father built it to withstand exactly this. Listen to me, all of you. This cabin has stood through 2 winters before this one. It'll stand through this storm. We are safe. But then there's a different sound. A crack. Loud. Final. And then smoke puffs back down the chimney, filling the room with the sharp sting of burning wood. Your father is on his feet immediately. He moves to the door, begins pulling on his outer gear. Silas. No. Your mother's voice is sharp with fear. You can't go out in this. Something broke, your father says. The chimney cap might have twisted, or a branch hit it. If that smoke backs up, we'll suffocate in an hour. I have to clear it. It's suicide. Your father pauses. He looks at your mother with an expression that's hard to read in the dim light. Fear, determination, love. If we lose the draft, we lose the fire. If we lose the fire, we freeze. I have to go. He's right. You all know he's right. But knowing he's right doesn't make it less terrifying. Your father finishes dressing, takes a length of rope from the supplies, and ties one end around his waist. He hands the other end to you. Ethan, you hold this. You're my lifeline. I'm going to go out, assess the damage, come right back. If I tug 3 times fast, something's wrong, and you pull me back in. No matter what. Even if I'm trying to stay out there. 3 fast tugs means I'm in trouble. Understand, you nod, taking the rope. Your hands are shaking. The rope is rough hemp, thick as your thumb, and as you wrap it around your hands, you feel the weight of what this means. This rope is your father's lifeline. If he dies out there, it will be because you failed to pull him back. Your heart is hammering so hard, you can hear it in your ears. You've never been this scared. Not when the wolves circled the barn last winter. Not when you fell through the creek ice and your father pulled you out. This is different. This is your father's life in your 12-year-old hands. Ethan, his voice cuts through your fear. Look at me. You look up. His face is calm, determined. There's no doubt in his eyes, no hesitation. You can do this, he says. You're strong enough. You're ready. I trust you with my life. Do you understand? I trust you. Something steadies inside you. The shaking stops. Your grip on the rope firms. Yes, sir. you say. And then he's gone, swallowed by the storm, and you're alone with the rope and the terrible responsibility it represents. The first minute is endless. You feel small tugs your father moving, climbing up to the roof, searching for the chimney cap. The rope plays out slowly through your hands. You've positioned yourself with your back against the wall, feet braced, ready to pull. Clara appears beside you. She doesn't say anything. She just puts her hands on the rope below yours, adding her strength to yours. Ready. 2 minutes. 3. The cabin is silent except for the shriek of the wind and the pounding of your heart. Your mother stands by the door, ready to open it. Mary and Thomas huddle by the stove, watching with wide eyes. 4 minutes. That's too long. Something's wrong. Then 3 sharp tugs, fast, urgent, unmistakable. Pull! You shout. You and Clara heave backward. The rope goes taut, then starts to move. Hand over hand you pull. The rope burns through your palms, even through the calluses. Your back strains. Your legs shake with effort. The rope catches on something. Stops. No matter how hard you pull, it won't budge. He's stuck, Clara gasps. Pull harder, you roar. And you do. You pull with everything you have, every ounce of strength, every bit of will. You pull like your father's life depends on it, because it does. Because he trusted you, and you will not fail him. The rope gives. Suddenly, catastrophically, it comes loose, and you and Clara tumble backward. But you keep pulling, hand over hand, dragging your father back from the storm. Your mother throws open the doors. Wind and snow blast in. And then your father comes tumbling through, more falling than walking, landing hard on the cabin floor. Your mother and Clara slam the doors shut. The roar of the snowstorms outside cuts off. In the sudden silence, you can hear your father's ragged breathing, your own gasping sobs, and Clara's whispered prayer. Your father is a block of ice. His entire front is coated in frozen snow. His face is white, not red-white. That's worse. That means frostbite. But he's alive. He's breathing. He's here. You crawl to him on shaking hands and knees. "Papa, are you?" "I'm here, son." His voice is a whisper, but it's steady. "You did good. You brought me back." And then your mother is there, and Clara, and even little Mary and Thomas, all of you surrounding him, covering him, warming him with your bodies and your breath and your desperate, grateful love. Outside, the storm rages. Inside, your family holds together and holds. And holds. Your father opens the doors and steps into hell. The wind is so loud, so physical, that it feels like it's trying to invade the cabin. Snow swirls in fine as flour. The cold hits like a fist. Then he's gone, and the doors are closed, and you're standing there with a rope in your hands that might be the only thing keeping your father alive. 1 minute. The rope pays out slowly. 2 minutes. You can barely feel the tugs that tell you he's moving, searching. 3 minutes. 4. Then 3 hard tugs. Fast. The signal. You don't think. You pull. Clara appears beside you, adding her strength. The rope resists. Your father is either caught on something or he's fighting you. But you pull. Hand over hand, leaning back, dragging him back toward the door. Your mother opens the door system. Your father tumbles through, literally falls through, and lands on the floor in a heap. Your mother and Clara slam the doors shut. Your father's face is completely white. Ice has formed on his eyebrows, his beard, his eyelashes. He's shaking violently, but he's alive. Branch. Wedged in the cap, he gasps. Knocked it clear. Draft. Should be back. Your mother is furious and relieved in equal measure. She helps him out of his frozen outer layers while scolding him in a harsh whisper. But there's love in her anger. There's terror that almost became loss. It takes your father an hour to stop shaking. You all cluster around him, sharing body heat, rubbing his extremities to restore circulation. His fingers are waxy white, early frostbite. Your mother treats them carefully, gradually warming them with lukewarm water. That was stupid, your father finally admits. But the smoke is clearing. The draft is back. We can breathe. I gambled with all of your futures. I'm sorry. But you understand why he did it. Because not knowing was its own kind of death. The uncertainty would have eaten him alive. He had to know. This is another lesson about frontier survival. Sometimes the brave thing is to take action. But sometimes the brave thing is to sit still, to endure uncertainty, to accept that you can't control everything. Learning when to act and when to wait, that's wisdom. And wisdom, unlike knowledge, only comes through experience, often painful experience. That night, as the storm continues to rage, you all sleep fitfully, but you sleep together. And in the morning, you wake to silence. The storm has passed. March comes like a promise, half believed. The temperature rises to only 0 degrees. Feels practically tropical after the brutal lows of January and February. More importantly, the days are noticeably longer. The sun is stronger. The light is different. One morning, you hear it dripping. Water dripping from the roof edge. Melt water. Not much. It'll freeze again by nightfall. But it's a sign. An early scout of the thaw that's coming. Your father opens the window shutters for the first time since November. The light that floods in is shocking and painful after so many weeks of dimness. You all squint and cover your eyes like cave creatures emerging into day. The landscape outside is unrecognizable. Snow has drifted 20 feet high against the north wall. The world is sculpted into strange organic shapes, all white, all flowing. It's beautiful in an alien way, but it's also clear that you're still trapped. It'll be weeks before these drifts melt enough for travel. We made it, your mother says quietly, standing at the window. 3 more weeks and we'll see ground again. Smell earth, see green. But there's no celebration. Not yet. Because everyone knows the statistics. Most people who die in winter die in March. They get impatient. They take risks. They assume the worst is over. And March kills them for their assumption. We keep doing exactly what we've been doing, your father says. Same routines, same caution. Until we're actually truly free of winter, we treat it like it's still January. So you continue. Fire management, food rationing, the slow grinding maintenance of survival. But now it's harder, because you can see the end. The waiting becomes more painful when you know rescue is coming. In mid-March, your father makes a scouting trip. The O'Connor brothers come over to help Clara watch the homestead while he's gone. Your mother stays. He's gone for 8 hours. When he returns, he has news. The widow Elspeth made it through, he reports. She's thin but alive. Her dogs kept her sane, she says. She's already tapping her sugar maples, says the sap's starting to run. This is the best news. If sap is running, spring is real, not a fantasy. The Anderson family, your father's expression darkens. They made it, but barely. Lost their youngest to pneumonia in February. They're broken. The cabin goes silent. The Andersons' youngest was 4 years old, bright red hair, laughed constantly. You met him at a gathering last fall. and now he's gone, taken by the winter. The Carmichaels are fine. The Johnsons are fine. The Weatherbys lost their cabin in a fire and had to shelter with the Pratts for 6 weeks. Tensions there, but everyone survived. This is the inventory, the accounting. Who made it? Who didn't? Every frontier community does this when spring comes, counting the cost. Late March, you step outside without a coat, just for a minute, just to feel the sun on your face without layers of wool and canvas in the way. It's 45 degrees. Feels like heaven. Feels like a gift. The snow is melting fast now, revealing the brown grass beneath. Dead grass, yes, but grass, earth, reality. The white prison is evaporating. Birds return. You see a robin, and you almost cry. Your mother does cry. She stands there in the doorway watching this small bird hop across the muddy ground, and tears stream down her face. "I'd forgotten birds," she says. "I knew they existed, but I'd forgotten what they meant, what they promised." The robin represents everything. It represents a world where things grow, where movement is easy, and where cold doesn't kill in minutes. It represents freedom. April 1st, your father declares winter officially over. You open all the windows. You strip the quilts off the walls. You take down the inner door. You sweep out months of accumulated dirt and ash and debris. The cabin breathes, and so do you. That night, for the first time in 5 months, you sleep apart from your family, in your own bedroll, in your own space. The distance feels strange, lonely, but also good, human, normal. You've survived. Your family has survived. And tomorrow your father will start ploughing the field for spring planting. Your mother will start her garden. Clara will help repair the fences. And you'll step back into the world as a different person than you were when winter began. There's something we haven't talked about yet, something that history often overlooks because it happens in the margins, in the quiet spaces, between the dramatic moments of survival. Your mother Elara fights a different kind of winter war, and it's time you understood it. One morning in late February, you wake earlier than usual and find your mother sitting by the dim light of the slush lamp, her hands working steadily. She's not knitting, she's not mending, she's doing something you've never seen before. She's counting cloth strips, counting rags. Her face is drawn tired in a way that has nothing to do with the physical work of winter. "Mama?" you ask quietly. She startles, then composes herself. For a moment, you think she'll send you back to bed, but instead, she pats the space beside her. "Sit, Ethan. You're old enough now to understand something." She spreads the cloth strips on her lap. They're carefully washed, carefully stored. Precious. "Every month," she says carefully, "a woman's body goes through a cycle. It's natural, it's healthy. But in winter, in this cabin, it becomes another battle to manage." You feel your face grow hot, but she continues matter of fact. "In town, back east, there are products, manufactured items. Here we have cloth. We have water we must heat with precious firewood. We have limited privacy. And we have the knowledge that if we don't manage this carefully, if infection sets in, there's no doctor within 3 days' travel, and those 3 days might be impossible in a blizzard." She folds the cloths with precise movements. "Your sister Clara is 16 now. She manages her own cycle. I manage mine. We do this quietly, without complaint, because complaining doesn't change reality. We heat water in the deep night when everyone's asleep. We wash and dry these cloths near the fire when we can. We deal with cramping and discomfort while still cooking, still managing the household, still maintaining normalcy for you younger ones. Your mother looks at you directly now. I tell you this not to embarrass you, but because one day you might have daughters or a wife, and they'll need you to understand that survival for women carries additional complexities that men often never see. We bleed, we manage it, we continue, and we never let it stop us from doing what needs to be done. She returns the cloths to their storage spot, a wooden box lined with cedar to keep them fresh. The widow Elspeth told me once that she survived her first winter alone by talking to her monthly cycle like it was a friend visiting. "Hello, again," she'd say. "You're proof I'm still alive, still healthy, still capable of creating life, even in this death landscape." She turned it from a burden into a reminder of resilience. Your mother stands, stretches her back. Winter doesn't just test your body's ability to stay warm, Ethan. It tests every system, every routine, every private human need. And women bear an extra load that history books will never write about, because we don't complain, we don't quit, we just manage. She moves to wake Clara for the morning fire shift. "Remember this," she says over her shoulder. "When you hear stories of frontier survival, know that half the story is invisible, hidden in the quiet competence of women who keep everyone alive while fighting battles no one sees. The lesson settles into you like a stone dropping into deep water. You'd never thought about it, never considered it, but now you can't unsee it. The extra water your mother boils. The way she and Clara take turns slipping out to the cold entryway at odd hours. The careful management of cloths and privacy and pain, all while maintaining the cheerful efficiency that keeps the household running. Invisible work, essential work. Winter survival isn't just firewood and food. It's managing every aspect of human biology with limited resources in tight quarters with no margin for error. And your mother does it without flinching, without failing. She is, you realize, as much a winter warrior as your father. Perhaps more so, because her battles are fought in silence, in darkness, with no recognition and no respite. That morning, you tend the fire with new reverence. Because you finally understand survival is a team effort. And some team members carry loads you'll never fully comprehend. But you can honor them. You can see them. You can make sure their work isn't invisible anymore. Before we end tonight, I want to sit with you a moment longer. Think about the Bennett family. Think about what they endured, not as history, not as entertainment, but as reality, as the daily lived experience of thousands of families just like them. They survived on knowledge, on routine, on connection, on purpose. They survived because they understood that survival isn't a single heroic act. It's 10,000 small, careful, boring acts of maintenance and vigilance and care. And here's what I want you to carry with you as you drift towards sleep. We still do this, in different forms, in different contexts, but we still do this every time you maintain a relationship through a difficult season. Every time you choose to get out of bed and do the necessary work when you don't feel like it. Every time you check on a neighbor, share your knowledge, and contribute to your community's resilience. Every time you keep the fire going, literally or metaphorically, through the dark times. You're doing what the Bennetts did. You're surviving winter. Your winter might not be Montana 1883, but it's winter nonetheless. And the same principles apply. Keep the fire lit. Stay connected to your people. Maintain your routines. Don't count the days. Don't lose the thread. Find meaning in the small acts of maintenance. And remember, Spring always comes, always. Rest now. Let this story settle into your bones. Let the rhythm of survival, the warmth of family, the steady breathing of a well-tended fire lull you into peace. Tomorrow is waiting. But tonight, let yourself be held by the knowledge that humans have survived impossible things, and you carry that strength in your very DNA. Sleep well, my friend. The cold can't reach you here. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until we meet again in another story, in another time. Good night. If you enjoyed learning about frontier winter survival and want to hear more stories about the resourcefulness and resilience of early American families, gently tap that subscribe button. And if you'd like to support this channel and help us continue bringing you these detailed historical journeys, there's a link in the description. But most importantly, take care of yourself. Stay warm, stay connected, and remember, you're stronger than you know. Sweet dreams. So sleep well tonight. Dream of spring. Dream of water running under ice. Dream of the sun growing stronger day by day. Dream of seeds waiting in the earth for their moment to grow. And know that whatever winter you're facing in your own life, you have the strength to survive it. Just like the Bennetts did. Just like countless others have done. One day at a time. One small victory at a time. Until spring comes, as it always does. Good night.